Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Tanks replay. This one's in the KV-220. Now it's been quite a long time since I uploaded a replay from this tank. I don't play it as often as I probably should, but it's not really one you see too often anymore actually. Then again, I don't really play low tiers, so that's probably why. You can see the enemy have a KV-220 as well, but just the one. We've ended up on the west spawn of Pearl River. It's a tier 6 match, but there aren't too many tier 6s. Being not just a heavy tank, but one of the better armoured tier 5s in the game, I decided to head for the northeastern route, the mountain pass up there, while the rest of my team does something very interesting, and by very interesting, I actually mean very, very stupid. They form a train of idiots directed straight at the central paths of the map, which is a hellish piece of terrain to fight in. It's too narrow, there's multiple approaches to it. If you have a whole team in there, it gets too cramped, you can't move, you get shot up from 3 or 4 different paths, which the enemy run their mediums and the lights through. It's hell, don't do that, it's bad. Quite apart from that, they're leaving the south relatively open with only the Chaffee, ELC, Nashorn and SU-100Y to defend it, and the northeast is just me. That's it, just me, nobody else. You can already see the enemy have a KV heading that way. It is in fact their KV-220. Roll. So he's going to be a problem. Because while the KV-220 has fantastic armor, it has a really low pen gun. That's why it's got preferential matchmaking. As you can see, I carry mostly APCR in it, for that reason exactly. So while I know where to shoot a KV-220 to pen it, I might have a little trouble even with gold. And then there's this. T1 rolls straight into my face, takes my driver out right away. I forget where to aim, he doesn't. And so now he's put 2 shots through my front, and at these low tiers you don't have the hit points to take many more shots than that. So I call for help, and thankfully our Cromwell is able to disengage and beeline it straight for the T1. I wait for him to get its attention before I begin pushing, and at this point the KV-220 is rolling up behind me, so I have to push forwards, I can't sit back. The only saving grace I have here is the 220 is slow, I know I'm in one, and the Cromwell will distract it while I deal with the T1 Heavy. Thankfully the T1 now forgets how to aim and begins trying to shoot my tracks. This gives me plenty of time to deal with him while he uselessly pings off my armor. Good going, guy. The Cromwell is behind the 220. I'm actually tracked at the moment, and I decide to just reverse up and reverse side scrape against this piece of terrain. Now, he can't really pen my hull, but he can pen my turret. Thankfully, he doesn't seem to know it. If you have to fight a KV-220, this is how you do it. You shoot it in the turret, not the hull. It's kind of like a 4502B. It's the opposite of what you would expect. And kind of like the Churchills as well, and to an extent the Excelsior, the only place to really shoot it and pen reliably is the turret. Even the sides and rear of the hull have fantastic armor for tier 5, but the turret is just a regular KV turret. Now if they put a KV-1E turret on this, it would probably be broken as fuck, and you wouldn't be able to pen it anywhere in some of the lower pen tier 5s, but a lot of puppies just don't fight them enough to know where to aim, and so they go for the hull. You know, using conventional wisdom, the hull is weaker than the turret, and it completely backfires on them because it turns out that this thing doesn't adhere to conventional wisdom. Cromwell runs ahead and begins engaging the tanks pushing on our base. Things are looking kind of dire at this point, but thankfully a lot of the enemy tanks are missing hit points from that big punch up in the middle, and I'm able to get a quick shot into the Sherman there, the Jumbo, who's finished by the Cromwell. A stock Cromwell, I should note, using the 6-pounder. So I'm surprised he penned that thing frontally. While the enemy Sherman pulls back and hides, I'm able to engage the KV-1 and the Churchill without interference from him, which makes me a very happy camper. Unfortunately, the Churchill's giving me bad angles at the moment, but if he just sits still broadside to me, I should have a pretty good chance of penning him. Meanwhile, our SU-100Y pushes alone towards the enemy cap, cleans up the SU-5, big hero, and in a minute he dies. Because that's what happens when you try and push alone in an SU-100Y. You can see here the Churchill's actually tracked broadside to me, and I'm able to punch shells through his side armor quite happily. He does actually pen me there, but I finish him off, and with him down, the enemy team are pretty much done for at this point. The odds have now flipped in our favour, and the Churchill, who was carrying the crap out of the enemy team with 6 of their 9 kills, is now dead. The enemy do still have a toaster in their base, as it just killed our foolhardy SU-100Y. They also have a T1 heavy, although he appears to be AFK, or if he's not AFK, he's just camping really hard, so I'm not too worried about him. And this Sherman, of course, ran off somewhere, so there's still him to deal with. Sherman appears in front of me. The ELC should be able to deal with him at that kind of range. It's not likely to miss. Sure enough, it finishes him off after nearly getting blown up, and then begins parachuting down the hill. I decide to stop for a moment up here to just see if I can get shots into the T1 and the toaster when they're lit. I had a feeling they'd be behind terrain, sure enough the T1 is, but the toaster is out in the open for me. I have no idea how that hit. I'm not sure if YouTube quality permits you to see the actual path of that tracer, but it missed high into his left, and yet still registered a hit. Now, from what I recall, tracers don't actually show the path of the shot. They don't sync up properly. It's more just a sort of a visual representation of generally what's going on. I don't remember what it was. I think there was some Q&A session about it or something at some point, but there are many points in this game where you can see a tracer go somewhere that is very definitely not an enemy tank, and you'll still get a hit, or you might see a tracer go dead center for an enemy tank and nothing. I'm not sure how it happens, but it does happen. In any case, the T1 Heavy is going down. He's got Chaffee and ELC, a Cromwell, and the Artie all gunning for him, and he doesn't really appear to be doing much to fight back. He did get a shot out there, but too little too late. Not a huge damage game. Well, I guess 1500 damage is okay for a tier 5, but in this thing you kind of expect more. It did end up being a pretty decent turnaround though, and I was actually surprised we were able to turn it around so convincingly. Good show of how to fight in and against the KV-220, since they are comparatively uncommon. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and as ever, I'll see you on the next one.